How many of you knew that USC does not have a losing record against any team in the big conference? All 17 of them.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download this podcast, this show's always going to be free, and this show's always going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So it's true. There are 18 teams in the big conference, the Big Ten. The last time the conference expanded before USC brought along UCLA and Oregon and Washington was back in 2014. They added Maryland and Rutgers. Before that, a few years earlier, Nebraska. Now, I mentioned at the very top that USC does not have a losing record against anybody in the conference. It's pretty impressive when you think about it. Throughout history, 17 different teams, not one of them can say, hey, I got a better record over USC than USC has over us. USC, Michigan State. They are tied at 4 games apiece, right? So that's the closest you're going to get. But there are 2 other teams that USC actually faces on consecutive weeks coming up that also do not have a win against USC, but they also don't have a loss. USC is playing these guys for the first time ever. They'll take on Maryland Saturday, College Park, and then next Friday, back home, USC will host Rutgers. USC, Maryland, and Rutgers, I'll say it again, they have never faced each other. And USC needs to make sure that Maryland, make sure their powers that be understand that, USC isn't a team you schedule your homecoming with. You don't do that. So, but I'll tell you what, wouldn't it be ironic if the 2 most recent additions to the Big Ten Conference, the big conference, if they ended up having a winning record over USC before any of the originals, so to speak? I mentioned this earlier in the week. USC has only played in the state of Maryland twice. Okay, first time back in 1950, they played in Baltimore, Maryland. They lost to Navy, and then 20 years ago, USC opened up with Virginia Tech at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. We know how that game ended. We know how that season ended. It ended very well. Now, like Rutgers, Maryland is they're a team that has never claimed a big conference championship. Both of those programs, historically, and I know they haven't been around very long, but they are considered bottom feeders of the Big Ten. One thing you can point to with Maryland, and you can do it with Rutgers, but we're going to talk about Maryland because that's who USC faces this week, is their head coach, Mike Locksley. He's an offensive-minded guy, and he's actually led Maryland to, I think they've won their last 3 bowl games. Not bad. Again, minor bowl games, but, they're 8-win teams, beating teams like Auburn in the Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium, those types of bowl games. On Thursday, you're watching this episode of Locked On USC. First thing Friday, end of the week, heading into the full slate of games this weekend. Every Thursday, the media, we get to talk with Coach Lincoln Riley on Zoom. And on this Zoom call, Coach Riley talked about Maryland and how they stand out on both sides of the ball, how they can affect USC in this game. And he said this about their head coach, Mike Locksley. He's a tremendous offensive coach. Now, you know me. Recently, I've been on this narrative that I think if Coach Riley wants to take the next step in his development as a head coach, he needs to give up play calling, hire an offensive coordinator that he would trust to call the plays. Interestingly enough, Maryland's head coach took over the play calling duties last week against Northwestern, and he's going to continue doing so this week. Coach Riley said that Maryland likes to build their offense off their run game, and they are very creative with it. Defensively, the Terrapins have a very veteran front seven, and a lot of talent there. Okay. Here's what I know. Last week against Northwestern, Mike Loxley might have been calling the plays for Maryland. They only scored 10 points. Now, a lot of that was probably due to turnovers. They turned the ball over 4 times. You can't do that. They were moving the ball, but if you're going to turn the ball over when you get to the red zone, good luck, right? Something else we're going to learn about if USC's made an adjustment, because we know the Big Ten officiating, it's hard to figure out. That's about as nice a thing as I can say about this conference's officiating right now. It's hard to figure out. Coach Riley spoke about that on Thursday on the Zoom call, where he said they're coaching players to how to, I guess he put it this way, certain penalty decisions this year. They're coaching players on how to, I guess, coach with a penalty. He said there have been adjustments made in a few areas, including contact downfield, both offensively and defensively, and a few things at the line of scrimmage that definitely feel different in terms of the level of, what's getting flagged, not from at least when they're playing back in the Pac-12. Like I said, things are just a little bit different in the big conference. What he was trying to say, again, is that he's trying to teach his offensive line how to block, because holding is legal now. You can do it. It's been happening all year long. I mentioned, Maryland, they did move the ball offensively against Northwestern, 4 turnovers. You can't have that. And what's so interesting about that statistic is typically the Terrapins, they protect the ball fairly well. And, they take the ball well like Pirates. In fact, Maryland ranks second in the conference with a +7. And of that +7, they actually have 8 interceptions as a team. Minnesota's number 1 in conference with the +9. And those 8 interceptions, yeah, they're tied for 12th most among the FBS level teams. So the guys who like to get in there and take the ball away when the ball's in the air, keep an eye on Glendon Miller. He has 3 picks. Jalen Husky, he has 3. Dante Trader Jr. and Ruben Hippolyte II. All right, so we know that Maryland likes to take the ball away. If you're going to throw it, they're going to ball hawk it. I got a couple of predictions for this game. I haven't given one yet. Game's Saturday. Might as well get it over with, right? Here's what you need to know about my knowledge about Maryland football. It is only surpassed by my lack of Rutgers football knowledge. I don't know a lot about Maryland. I'll tune in, catch 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, check the stat lines. That's about it. But as I mentioned on yesterday's episode, whoever's in charge at Maryland, they figured, hey, let's make USC our homecoming game. Let's get the crowd out there, generate some interest, and we're going to charge the most for the tickets. Didn't make any sense, but whatever. USC is coming to this game 3-3. They've lost 2 in a row on the road to Minnesota, at home to Penn State. Maryland's lost 2 in a row. Both of these programs are looking to avoid 3-game losing streaks. With that said, USC had that overtime loss at home. Maryland turned the ball over like crazy at home. That's why they lost 37-10. With all that, I'm going to go a little bit of homer here. I think Miller Moss is going to bounce back. He didn't have a terrible game against Penn State. It was a better game than he had against Minnesota. But he's been off recently. This is that bounce back game. So he's going to kind of lose that turnover prone that he's been in, that slump that he's kind of been in lately. And after a couple of poor performances, I think he's going to throw for 250 yards. Even though Maryland likes to pick off the opponent, they still give up 250 yards through the air. So I think Miller gets healthy in this game. And this will be a game where Maryland doesn't collect an interception. So those are the two things I predict. Miller Moss gets better. He doesn't throw an interception. He'll throw for 250 yards. USC is going to win this game. I'm going to go 37-20. One other quick note. I know Lake McCree isn't going to play in this game, so we'll see. Is Walker Lyons going to be a bigger part of the passing offense? Is Cade Eldridge? Are they going to keep those guys back to continue with the pass protection? It helped last week. Coach Riley, as I mentioned at the top of the segment, Maryland has an experienced front seven. That might be part of the game plan again. Keep the tight ends at home. Use them once in a while out there in the open field. So even though Lake McCree won't be ready this week, what I want to say is Coach Riley said he actually might be ready next week. I'm shocked. We all watched that hit he took to his surgically repaired knee. If Miller Moss isn't the toughest son of a bitch on the team, Lake McCree is. Bottom line. I am amazed. I am shocked that he is already ready to come back and play and contribute. Now, no more sideways passes. That's all. That's the only coaching suggestion I'm going to offer to Coach Riley when it comes to Lake McCree. If you're going to use him in the passing game, get him going vertically up the seam. Do not get him out there in the flat. Do not expose him to those types of hits anymore. All right. Next segment. We're at the halfway point. We'll call it halftime of the season. We're going to take a little look at the defense. What we like, what's good, what's bad, what they need to improve on. Guys, dudes, you know that you're hanging around, you're with your special someone, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, something's going to happen. Well, got to be ready. Got to be ready to perform. Hims is a product that's going to provide you access to treatment that can help you stay hard and always be ready to perform in the bedroom. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. No more doctor's visits. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for that uncomfortable, doc, I'm having this issue type of thing. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine what is the right treatment for you, the right option, and if it's prescribed, your medication is going to ship directly to you. It's going to be discreet. No one will know what you're getting, and it'll be free. No insurance is involved, so that's cool. One low price covers everything from the treatments to the ongoing care. And with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on product and subscription plan. What do we like and what do we not like about this year's defense? So the first thing we like is that this year's defense is not 2022's or 2023's defense. Right off the board. We like USC's defense in 2024. Could it be better? Sure. But the improvement on that side of the ball, dramatic. Night and day. Black and white. I mean, it is. Imagine this year's defense on that 2022 squad. Yeah, we are. We know. What I know, what these untrained eyes know, is that this actually looks like a defense. USC looks like they know what they're doing on that side of the ball. They're physical. For the most part, they tackle really well. They still have some lapses. We saw what happened against Michigan. We saw what happened against Minnesota. Tackling really wasn't an issue last week against Penn State. That was just more of a, I don't know. They got out schemed, got lost. Their eyes weren't focused. Penn State's tight end made fools of USC's defense. How's that? The other thing I really love about USC's defense in 2024, I love their goal line stand. That whole nut up mentality. Really, really good. Really, really good. So I think even though USC's 3-3, and we really did anticipate this team being a little bit having a better record than what they're showing right now. Thank you, Coach Lincoln Riley. Thank you for hiring Coach Antonlynn, for Coach Matt Entz, for Coach Doug Belk, and Doug Henney. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's been a lot of the good. And there's still half a season left for these guys to even get better. But what's been the biggest bugaboo so far? The thing that's really been bugging you? I mean, obviously, the first thing that jumps to mind for me, the lack of sacks and pressure on the quarterback from the defensive line, specifically the defensive end position. I mean, we're 6 games in, and the defensive line has combined for 2.5 sacks this season. As a team, USC only has 6. You would think with Utah State mixed in there, they would have had at least 2.5 just in that game alone. Didn't happen. Look, I get it. I really do. It's not like they played the most prolific passing teams this year. But, LSU likes to throw the ball a lot. Somehow or another, because USC was able to shut down Penn State's running game, Penn State was forced to throw it 40 times. Michigan, that was a non-issue. You're not going to collect a lot of interceptions or sacks. Not when they're only throwing it 12 times. Not sure what happened against Minnesota, but it didn't happen. So as I said, you got those teams, you got Utah State mixed in there, and 2.5 sacks from the defensive line. I don't like that. They got to do better. Hopefully it starts this weekend against Maryland. So is it a scheme thing? Is it a personnel thing? Coaching issue? I guess if you were going to make me choose of those 3, I think it's probably a personnel thing. And it's, again, if it appears 12 o'clock and I got to lean one way or the other, here's how I'm leaning towards personnel. I mean, like that, barely. I think they've got the players. I just don't know if they have enough elite players. That might be the difference. The other thing on that side of the ball, what's up with the lack of interceptions from the secondary? As in, none. I mean, Deuce Robinson has one. He was wearing number 52 last week on that late game Hail Mary. I even turned to Eric. I said, "Who's 52?" He said, "Oh, because I didn't hear the announcement. Number 2's wearing number 52." But it was Deuce. So now, going forward, 6 games left without Bear Alexander, Anthony Lucas, Eric Gentry. Those are 3 key players that USC and the defense, the fans, are all looking forward to, depending on this season. So we know that, I guess we're going to find out what this defense is made of. During Thursday's Zoom call, again, I'm going to keep bouncing back and forth with this. Coach Riley, he kind of backed up what I mentioned on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC about younger guys playing out of necessity. So Coach was asked about that on the Zoom call, and this is what he had to say. We don't really have a choice right now. Like I said, out of necessity. So we'll see, how these younger players step up. Some of the guys I think you're going to see are going to include Desmond Stevens, Jade Abasari. I think going forward, Eli Newby, Cameron Fountain. Anthony Lucas is done for the year. So when Coach Riley was talking about these younger guys and their opportunities that are coming up, mainly out of necessity, he reminded us on the video call that, hey, look, these guys have been developing throughout the year. They're to step up and contribute. Now is their chance to do in a real game action. So those are some of the younger guys we're going to start seeing. But again, at the halfway point, we're talking about the defense, what we like, what we don't like, what we'd like to see do better. Who do you think should be the MVP at the halfway point? I think most Bear Alexander would be the dude in year 3, in his third year, especially with Coach Kenny. Well, we know Bear quit after 3 games, so he's not the Eric Gentry. He was running away, I think, with the award until he suffered another concussion. So he's done for the year. So I think, obviously, the correct answer is Kamari Ramsey. He's tied for third on the team with 30 tackles, 21 of those by himself. He's got 3.5 TFLs, and he actually has one of the 16 sacks. He has really been a steadying influence on that side of the ball since he came over from UCLA with Antonlynn. Not many of you know this, and I think I mentioned this a while back. Kamari Ramsey wanted to be a Trojan out of high school, out of Sierra Canyon. Stuff happened with recruiting, and he wasn't. So he's where he belongs now, where he's always wanted to be. And again, he's been that steadying influence, doing a really good job. And look, who doesn't like somebody who says, we nutted up? I mean, it's just that defensive mentality. That's who he is. Now, if he's the MVP, the most improved player this year on defense, say it with Jalen Smith, without a doubt. Without a doubt. He had his breakout performance in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville, took home the defensive MVP award of the game, and he hasn't stopped. He just keeps going. He's like the Energizer Bunny. Everyone thought that, when USC replenished their roster through the transfer portal this offseason, that probably each one of those guys was going to be the starter. I literally thought it was going to be Carlos Newsom at cornerback, Humphreys at the other cornerback. Who was around before those guys showed up. Jalen Smith, who was around before anybody showed up. Those guys have been your starters at corner. Jalen Smith has found a home at cornerback. Tried him at safety, at nickel. You know what? You're going to go that position over. He's done that. He's done it really, really well. He's missed a game this year with an injury, but he's 6th on the team in tackles, tied for 3rd in TFLs. And since that game against LSU where he gave up 4 pass receptions, he hasn't allowed more than 2 in any game. Okay? That's pretty good for a cornerback. The other reason why I'm a big Jalen Smith fan, again, he stuck it out. He could have jumped in the transfer. He could have left. He's not at you. And I like players who persevere, who aren't in it for themselves, they're in it for the team. Jalen Smith is one of those types of guys. All right, so that's what I like about the defense. We know they need to improve, creating pressure, getting sacks from the defensive line. Be great if the secondary can, generate some turnovers. And when I say that, get some interceptions. Go ball hawk. Start this weekend. Billy Edwards is the Maryland quarterback. 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Let's keep him out of the end zone, and let's have him tag on 3 more interceptions. I'll be happy. 3 sacks, 3 interceptions. USC wins this game. It's the NFL season, and I know there's a lot of NFL fans out there, and you're saying, you know what? I got to get over to FanDuel. I got to place my bet. FanDuel, they're America's #1 sports book. But did you know that you just don't place your bets over there? They're totally interactive. You can check on live play-by-plays. You can check stats. So if you got bets going on multiple games and you're watching one, you can check it all out on FanDuel. And now, what else you can do? You can get $200 on bonus bets. If you've never used FanDuel before, you should set up an account. Bet $5. Win or lose, you're going to get $200 on bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's that simple. That's FanDuel.com. It's Friday. It's time for my Friday rant. So last week, before the game, a couple days before USC was kicking off against Penn State, Kyle Ford, Deuce Robinson, they were on social media, and they were using I think it was on X, I saw it. They were calling out the USC fans, encouraging them to get to their seats early. Show everybody that USC, the fan base, can give the home team a home field advantage. That didn't happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen. In fact, 15 minutes before kickoff, when the USC's band, the Spirit of Troy, when they're doing their pregame concert on the field, when the Trojan warrior marches out there, claims the logo, spikes the field with the sword, band take the field. I could have swore there were more Nittany Lion fans in the stands than Trojan fans. Guess who noticed? The Spirit of Troy, the band. Guess who sent out a tweet? I think it was on Monday, a couple days after the game. Yeah. They were polite about it, but they still found a way to kind of, I'll say, chastise, point the finger at the USC Trojan fan base, the Trojan family, and they deserved it. The Trojan band used one of those time-lapse videos, how everything's moving really fast. It was showing the fans filling in the Coliseum, finding their seats during the pregame concert. Wasn't good. Granted, by the time kickoff started and halfway through the first quarter, the stadium was mostly full. Technically, it was a sellout. Literally, it wasn't. Here's my rant. Here's what I'm upset about. Look, and I've been around for a long time. I know how the USC fan base is. Even when they're winning, you got to pull them across the finish line. They're lazy. It's the excuses that the fans offer up. They just don't cut it. Don't give me the excuses. I don't want to hear it. Because you know what? The Penn State fans, they were able to figure it out. They were able to get their butts inside the stadium, in their seat, well before kickoff. I mean, the excuses, it takes forever to get through security. You have no idea what it's like, Mark. BS. I do know what it's like. Used to be a season ticket holder for a long time, 20 plus years. So don't want to hear it. Here's another one. I bought the ticket so I can do whatever I want with them. Sure you can. You want to waste your money? You're not supporting the team by not showing up. All you're doing is putting money in USC's coffers. That doesn't go to NIL. Here's another favorite of mine. Win more games and the fans they'll show their support better. I mean, that one always makes me shake my head. Literally. Hello, McFly. No. You support your team, win or lose. You don't see that kind of crap from other blue blood programs. Ohio State fans, they show up. Michigan fans, they show up. Alabama fans, they show up, even for games against Mercer. I don't want to hear it. Stop giving me excuses. If you bought a ticket, go up to the game. If somebody dies, I get it. You've got a valid excuse. But all these mental gymnastics you guys put yourselves through to justify not being in your seat on time or not showing up at all, stop it. Stop it. You know you're wrong. Makes no sense. Fan is short for fanatic. If you're a fan and you have a ticket and you have the ability to be there on time, get there on time. If you know that getting through security takes a little bit longer than you'd like, leave your tailgate a little bit earlier than you'd like. Well, I want to watch the end of the game. Great. Watch it on your phone. Stand in line, watch it on your phone. Stop with the excuses. Start supporting this team. You don't agree with me? Let me know. You don't want to find me. But if you think about it, you really don't have a valid excuse. Especially if you're showing up and you're showing up late. There is no excuse. Can't do it. Won't accept it. Excuses are like, yeah, we know what they're like. Everybody has one. And they all stink. All right. That's it for this episode of Locked on USC. I will be back after the Maryland game some point. You'll have my instant reaction. Heaven forbid they're on a 3-game losing streak, because you know what I can be like when USC loses. Let's not see Mark in a bad mood. All right. Till that next episode, everyone, you know what to do.